It's baseball season, but instead of trying to bite a baseball, bite into one of these popcorn balls. Sweet and salty, chewy and crunchy, it's got a little bit of everything, and the best part is you can put whatever you want in there. Get your popcorn here to the kitchen. Alrighty, so I'm gonna make homemade popcorn here, and you can totally use microwave popcorn, but I just love the way that this stuff comes out. And I'm gonna do it in a pot, so I will start by heating up my pot over medium heat and getting a few tablespoons of an oil with a high smoke point, like a vegetable oil or a canola oil. And here are my popcorn kernels. You can find these in pretty much every store. I'm going with 2 cups, so I'm just gonna get those right in there, and then I wanna give it a nice good stir to make sure that all of the kernels have a little bit of the oil in there, and there's a nice even layer. You don't wanna overcrowd the bottom, so they all get some of the heat. And then very important, I will cover this, and I'll raise the heat to about medium high. You don't want to rush this, and you do want to keep it moving. If you've ever made like Jiffy Pop on the stovetop, it's the same kind of concept. You want to make sure that you're getting a little bit of air in there, so there's a hole in my top, and I like to just kind of tilt the lid so it gets a little bit of air coming in and some of the steam coming out. And you don't have to move it the whole time, but you do want to keep it moving fairly consistently so all of the kernels are getting heated evenly, the oil is distributed evenly, and in just a couple minutes you should start to see a little bit of popping, and then from there you're off to the races. The popping is going to happen much more quickly. Make sure that you're using a container big enough so it can take all the seeds that you put in there. And again, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of air coming through while still keeping covered, or else you have popcorn flying in your face. And once you're done, you can kind of turn off the heat because this is going to keep going. It's going to keep raising and raising up to the lid, and you can kind of just let it chill and do its thing at this point because it's going to keep popping. If you take off the lid now, you're probably going to have some popcorn flying up in your face. So after a couple minutes of the heat being off, just let it kind of chill. Then when you take the lid off, you'll see you got some pretty darn good popcorn here, and you can start feasting right away. But we want to keep this hot for our popcorn balls. It's a lot easier to work with hot popcorn. So if you're not making it yourself, you could always just throw in the oven about 250 degrees just to heat it up. Now we're essentially going to make candy so the popcorn sticks together. So I'll start with a pan over low heat, and this is a half a cup of corn syrup, a cup of sugar, a little bit of water just to help everything melt, a tablespoon of salt, about a 1/4 cup of butter that you can melt beforehand if easier, a tablespoon of vanilla, and there you have it. And then we want to mix everything together really well over low heat. And then once everything's kind of melted together, this is when you can raise the heat up, because we essentially want to boil this for about 2 minutes, right? Because we're making candy pretty much. We want this to turn to like a syrup, so we want to bring it up to a boil. So you want to keep it moving so it's distributing evenly. Once you start whisking, don't worry if it foams up like this. I'm making enough of this syrup for 2 cups worth of popcorn seeds, so this is going to give me a lot of popcorn balls, so it's a lot of syrup, so you can scale it down to your needs. And you can temp this out. Once it hits at least 235, you're good to go. But in my opinion, it's just so much easier just to boil it for a couple minutes, turn off the heat, and if it looks like this, if it has a nice syrupy consistency, then you are good to go. And we want to keep this warm. It'll make it a lot easier to work with warm syrup. Just do not touch it because it is super hot and super sticky. Now you don't have to put anything in these popcorn balls. You can keep them on the healthier side with maybe like some raisins or something, but I'm gonna have some fun with this today. So I have an assortment here of some toasted and chopped nuts, cookie pieces, and Reese's pieces. I won't tell your dentist if you won't. Have something non-stick ready, like a baking sheet lined with parchment, and then we will grab our bowl, get some popcorn in there while it's still hot, throw in our cookie pieces. Yeah, let's get the rest of those in there. Our toasted peanuts, give that a good mix. Don't worry if the stuff goes to the bottom. And then we will add in our syrup again while it's still warm. And you just want to start with a little bit here. The more syrup you use, the more candied like it's going to get. So using as little syrup as you need to get everything to stick together. You can always add more, but hard to take it away. Once you give everything a good mix, it should look a little bit like this. Best tip I have is to wet your hands every time you go in to make a ball. Just kind of squeeze it and roll around, give it a little compression in your hand. Should look like this. You can see everything is sticking together, nothing's falling out. I'll wet my hands, get back in there until I have all of my balls, and I will place them on my baking sheet lined with parchment so nobody's sticking. And they don't need too long to set up. I don't recommend refrigerating them because they get kind of hard, but once the popcorn and syrup cools, they'll stick together super nicely. And again, this is just one example. You can literally use whatever you want, but I like popcorn, cookies, and nuts, so there's a nice mix for me. Jumping into my second batch, bowl, popcorn. This time I'm going with the Reese's Pieces, and I love these because I love peanut butter, I love chocolate. We'll get a little bit of the syrup on top, and the Reese's Pieces just kind of melt a little bit, so you have some whole pieces, and then you have some pieces where it's like chocolate and peanut butter dispersing throughout. So with my wet fingers, grab a nice chunk, form it in my hands, give it a nice roll around in there. You can see some pieces are whole, some are melted, so you have the chocolate and peanut butter kind of melting throughout. And great example, different ingredients will melt differently. Obviously, the cookies and the nuts aren't really melting. The Reese's Pieces melt a little bit. You could use ingredients like Oreos or sprinkles, and everything's going to have a different melting point, a different consistency with the popcorn balls. So just have fun fun with it, use whatever you like, and it is time to dive into these bad boys. I really love this one. I mean, anytime you have popcorn, nuts, and cookies, you can't really go wrong. You can see after you give them a few minutes to kind of set, nothing's falling out. With each bite, you're exposing more layers. Little popcorn, little nut, little cookie. Kind of has like a Cracker Jack thing going on. These aren't really meant to be cut, but I'm going to do it just to kind of show you that you don't have to shape these into balls. If you want to just mix the syrup with the popcorn and whatever ingredients you want, you don't have to shape them. You can just kind of spread it out and have a really good flavored popcorn with some candy pieces stuck to it. But I think the ball shape somehow makes it taste better and more fun to eat. And although it's nice and stuck together, there's still a nice softness, chewiness, and a little bit of stretch to this. It's good to the very last drop, literally. You could make little mini balls. You could put these on sticks. Can literally use any flavor combination you want. The possibilities are only limited by your own imagination. It's kind of like a bag of Bertie Bott's jelly beans. You never know which one you're gonna get. Alas, I hope you don't get earwax.